Hi, I'm Orlando Realtor Scott Garrison with ReMax Town and Country, Orlando's #1 real estate company, with my partner Deanna Sokoto. And today we're at the New Smyrna Sugar Mill ruins. You know, we love to bring you reasons to live here in Central Florida and fun things to do if you do live here. And this is a great part of old Florida history. Now in 1830, this was pretty much nothing out here, and two guys, a guy named Crewer and a guy named Pister, got together, borrowed a bunch of money, and built a sawmill and a steam-powered sugar mill ruins right here on the site using African slave labor. So they're cutting down trees, turning into lumber for local produce, and they're taking the sugar cane that they grow and turning it into crystallized brown sugar. Now, they've borrowed a lot of money. They got the steam and all the equipment from New York, shipped it all the way here. It took many years it was going to take for them to break even and start making money. But here in December of 1835 was the outbreak in Florida of the Second Seminole Indian War. On Christmas Day, 1835, the Seminoles were restless. The plantation overseer took all the slaves and his family across the Halifax River back to the mainland because he knew things were about to get ugly, and they did. The Seminole Indians came and they burned the entire plantation. There's a famous painting of the burning of the plantation with a Seminole Indian kind of on the edge of the woods looking out over the burning plantation. So why is this important? Well, the Second Seminole War is one of the most important wars that Florida ever went through. This was back before the Civil War. This was back when Florida had just become a state in 1821. Prior to that, this was a country, part of a Spanish colonial possession. So in 1832, near here, there was a meeting between the U.S. government and the Indians called the Treaty of Payne's Landing, and they agreed to go west, to be relocated forcibly if necessary, but they agreed voluntarily to go west in 3 years at 1835. So that was 1832. This was already built. It's now 3 years later, December 1835. If you ever looked up the famous Dades Massacre that Dade County, Florida is named for, that was the battle that started the war. The Indians uprose and tried to take all of the U.S. government, all of the white men, all of the settlers, and push them into the seas. That was the start with the burning of this famous ruins of the Seminole Indian War, which lasted 1835 to 1842 and was America's longest, deadliest, and most costly Indian war. I know we see a lot about cowboys and Indians out in the West, but the most expensive most number of lives lost were right here, 1835 to 1842, when we were fighting just a few hundred, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 Seminole Indians. So that war ended in 1842. We declared, as the U.S. government, that the war was over. We actually never signed a peace treaty with the Seminole tribe. Technically, the Seminole Indian War from 1835 is still an unresolved war, and technically we're still at war with the Seminole Indians and the U.S. government. So technically, the U.S. government, since they just decided the war was over because there was just a few hundred Seminoles and they were all the way down into the Everglades, they said, all right, the war's over, but they never signed a peace treaty. And technically, the U.S. government is still at war with the Seminole Indian tribe. So a lot of it started right here in 1835. In 1840, during the height of the Seminole Indian War, a lot of the machinery, the steam machinery, which was housed in this building right here, was largely undamaged because it was basically cast iron. That's an example of what some of the machinery looked like. That was the main driver for the sawmill there. In 1840, during the height of the Seminole Indian War, a lot of the machinery, the steam machinery, which was housed in this building right here, was largely undamaged because it was basically cast iron. That's an example of what some of the machinery looked like. That was the main driver for the sawmill there. So they came and picked up the machinery and took it over to Port Orange to the Dunlawton Sugar Mill and Sawmill. Those things must have gone together at the time. So then the place was mostly empty. It was in private hands. It was owned. Over the course of the next 40, 50 years, people would come and take some of the coquina blocks for local construction projects. And there was a myth, a rumor going around that this was actually an ancient Spanish mission that dated from the time of Columbus in the 1500s. The Spanish Sugar Mill Park is a state park right on your way if you go to New Smyrna Beach. It's just 3 minutes out of the way. It's quiet. There's a nature trail. There's picnic benches. You want to stop by, it probably takes only 30 minutes to see, and it's a unique and irreplaceable part of Central Florida history to understand what a sugar mill was, what a lumber mill was, why it was ruined, what the Second Seminole War was. You can get all that for you or your kids in just a couple of minutes. And if you're looking for yet another reason to live here in Central Florida, this is it. And you don't want to say, get this kind of fixer-upper property, then we'll get you something even nicer. We've been actively listing and selling here for 35 years. Let us help you get a great deal on a home or get top dollar for your home if you want to get it sold.
So remember, if you want to buy or sell here in Central Florida, call us, Realtor Scott Garrison and Diana Sakoto, the realtors that you already know.